We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. This is the GCC Money Talks presentation of keeping educational costs and student debts down. I'm Ariel Clifton, and we have with us as well from District Student Loan Support, Chase McIntosh and Sue Young. And so we'll be presenting together. If you are, we're recording this one, so maybe you're watching the replay. Please go ahead and you can pause this and go grab a sheet of paper and a pen. Or if you're on with us live, hopefully you've already done that. But if not, now is that opportunity, and I will get us underway. So a couple of quick housekeeping things before we get started. I already mentioned the sheet of paper and a pen. Doesn't matter, printer paper or notebook paper, but standard size. And an important note, I know that we have a lot of participants who are in the honors program, and also there are some instructors who are offering extra credit. If that applies to you, be sure that you stay all the way to the end and that you submit, I sometimes call it the exit ticket. It's basically a quiz and survey, and that will give you the opportunity to let me know that you are participating for one of those purposes so that I can coordinate with those with your instructor and with the honors department. I appreciate everyone else to also please stay and get that done as well. In fact, there are some resources here that I'm putting together a Google Doc, and I will send that out based upon the emails that come through from that quiz and survey. So that's just kind of like a little extra bonus. So please hang in there with us and go ahead and give us your feedback. And the quiz part is a way of also testing your knowledge of what you got out of the session, both so that it's our way of seeing how well did we do in presenting, but it's also a way of you testing your own knowledge, because the more that you do that, the better you retain the information. Related to that, I always like to do also as well a quick disclaimer that we're not financial experts. I like to think of myself as a leading learner. I made my share of mistakes about money, and I have learned from that. I'm still not perfect. Money is something that you can keep on learning about. And Sue and Chase and I, we've actually been taking even more classes and training, and we continue to learn. So money is something that's relevant throughout all of your life, and it hits so many different aspects. So, this is not a be all end all. Come to this, get some good information, put it to work for you, but keep on learning. Okay. And like I was saying, we're not financial experts, but this is information to the best of our knowledge. Sue and Chase, however, are from, as I believe I mentioned earlier, they are from District Student Loan Support Services. So they work in this all day long. All right. And our agenda for today is presentation and discussion. And then we have our exit ticket, which is the quiz and survey, which is actually one combined device. So now onto that sheet of paper. So what I'd like you to do, and you could do it in a couple of ways. You could possibly just draw two lines, one down the center this way and one across it, both horizontal and vertical. I like the folding technique, so fold it once, fold it twice. The idea is that you're now going to have, basically a sheet with these four grids, whether you did it from folding or from your lines. And as we go through this presentation, what I'd like you to think in terms of are the first question is, what do you want to understand about paying for college? And the second of your boxes, write in, what do you want to do to keep educational costs down? Yeah, what I plan to do to keep my education costs and student debt down. The third one, what I plan to do to stay on track to graduate. And the fourth one is what I want to understand and remember about repaying my loans. Okay, so as we're going through and something strikes a chord for you, and maybe you even have some questions right now that you want to quickly note down, but leave yourself as well some room for taking notes in these different areas. And we're going to be kind of coming through all these different areas as we go through the presentation, but we're going to come back to this at the end and make sure that we get you some stuff in these four different categories of things. All right. And I'm going to start out with maybe I can close this. Yes, good. Okay, sorry, that was blocking my screen. So we start out with keeping educational costs down and some ways of doing that, and then we're going to get a little bit more into paying for college in terms of financial aid and what you want to know about grants and scholarships and loans and how do you keep student debt down. Okay, so it is possible to graduate with little or no student debt, and a good portion of that is keeping your educational costs and keeping your educational costs down. But it does take planning and some discipline. So we're going to help you get started by looking first at your educational costs. Okay, so a good aim is to have little to no debt. So focus first on the free sources of money. That means grants and scholarships because those are sources of financial aid that you don't have to pay back. With scholarships, just of course, always be aware of what are the stipulations of the scholarship. But they're generally they're not money that you normally have to pay back, but there are sometimes criteria that you may want to be aware of. But no matter what, you're going to benefit by reducing your educational costs. So we're going to dive into some ways of doing that. And the first one, you guys start off at a community college. Okay, by doing that, you can reduce your costs for probably about the first 2 years, or I should say 2 years worth of your credits. Okay, because sometimes it may take longer than a 2 years time frame to go and get the 60 units for your associate's degree. So we try to, not always say it's a 2-year degree, it's an associate's degree that takes 60 units. And the same with the bachelor's, it may take longer than years. Okay. With that in mind, though, many people are probably planning on continuing on beyond community college to get their bachelor's degree or even further. So some of these things are going to apply to right now at community college, but there are also many things here that you want to think about and keep in mind for as you are moving forward in your education. And this next slide is a really good example in terms of compare your housing options. So if say when you transfer, maybe you're not going to be local, maybe you're going to go out of state or something like that. Keep in mind that rent is not the only expense that you would need to face. And things can add up pretty quickly. There's different deposits, there's utility costs, there's all those things. So if you're really interested in keeping your costs down, where you can commute, maybe staying closer to home, may be a better option if your goal is to really keep your costs down. Okay. Look at keeping your food costs down, and staying closer to home can help with that as well. Planning out things ahead. Obviously, right now, a lot more classes are online and things like that. So there's probably a lot more eating at home, but as things transition back, I know in the past, a lot of times people just, we never planned what we're going to have. We know we're going to need to eat each day, but we're eating out. But, if you're planning ahead and either bring a lunch or snacks or both, that can actually help to save quite a bit of money. Okay. Textbooks, buy used or rent, and then sell your used books. And if you're not aware of the open educational resources, they're available. You can actually find them in Find a Class. There's a panel on the left-hand side that opens up, and you should be able to check mark that you're looking for classes that use OER, the Open Educational Resources. Those are resources that keep the cost down. So instead of a textbook, a lot of times they're online resources instead. And of course, compare bookstore prices with other online options. Other ways of reducing your college costs: earn money while you're in school. So in addition to applying for scholarships, start looking early, apply every year that you're in school, and explore all of your aid options. Keep in mind that some of your aid options can include work study. And that's the type of aid that you get where it's an incentive to campus departments to hire you, but you work for it. However, you wind up having more flexibility. You can gain experience and you have that convenience of working with somebody that knows that your priority is that you're in school. And they're generally going to be much more flexible with your schedule. So there's a number of benefits, but it can put some money into your pocket plus experience. And it's a form of financial aid. Um, so if that's something that you're not already aware of, talk with financial aid. Let them know that you're interested in it. Oh, and some other points on this in terms of, for say, transfer schools, if you are not going to be living at home, another thing to consider is that sometimes there's better housing. You can reduce your housing costs by being a resident advisor. So that would be another thing that you can look at if your plan is to transfer and live at college. Okay, good. Thought I missed one. Okay. Be responsible with your student loans. Your student loans, they're not free. It's money that you pay back with interest. Okay. And interest, I like to also, go over these terms because money is something where if you don't understand these terms, then things kind of go over your head. And it's easy enough to just say, oh, that's not for me. I'm just not the type of person that gets into that. When really it was just that there's terms that we're not always familiar with. Okay, so interest is basically money paid for the use of another person's money. It's paid to you on your savings account, but you pay it to somebody else when you borrow money. Okay, um, and all the whatever money that you are borrowing, you're not only going to pay it back later on, you're going to pay it back with the interest. So it's going to cost you more. Every dollar that you borrow is going to cost you more than a dollar later on. Okay. So to that end, if you can pay the interest while you're in school, because what will also happen is the interest then compounds, where you're not only paying interest on the money you borrow, but you will, depending upon your loans, and we'll get into that later on, but you'll also be charged interest on the interest. Okay, so if you can pay interest while you're in school, if it's a loan that's being charged interest, then that's a smart thing to do to help you to keep your student debt down. Okay. Consider the cost of your transfer school. And what I did is by the way, we've done this presentation before, but I feel like we kind of tried to take it to a whole other level. And as part of that, I took this one and we're going to look at this twice, the cost of your transfer school, because there's some other relevant information that we want to share that really ties in more with financial aid. But I'm going to touch on some of it right now, and that is that the actual cost of your transfer school aren't based just on the tuition alone. You want to consider, all the other costs. And Chase, I think you had a point that you maybe want to make here as well about, considering like how even their current costs maybe are more expensive than they probably originally thought. Maybe not. Okay. Um, By the way, the resources that are on this page, I'm working on a resource document that I will send out to those who are on the live session based upon them completing the quiz at the end. But one of them, that first one there, that first link is the College Board's Big Future tool, which helps you to compare the costs of different transfer schools. And they'll look at something called the net cost versus the sticker price. The sticker price is when you go to a college's website, a lot of times they might say, oh, well, it's this, but that doesn't take into account, um, it doesn't take into account the grants and scholarships that are often given out. And it also doesn't take into account other costs like room and board and fees and different things like that. And then I also like to let students know about the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So depending upon what your goals are and where you're thinking about going, for your transfer school. It's basically 16 Western states and territories that have a participation agreement to keep the cost down at the schools, at the participating schools in that exchange. So if you're researching where you want to go to school, it's worth checking them out. Okay. This is a big one. It's a very important one is stay on track to graduate. Sometimes students think that, well, if I don't graduate, I don't owe the money. No, you're responsible for all the money that you borrow. So it'd be really unfortunate to take out the loans with the goal of getting an education and then not get the education, and now you're still responsible for those loans. So please don't do that. Okay. Stay focused on your goal and graduate. Work to confirm your choice as early as possible, and then try to minimize classes that are not related to your plan. If you're undecided and you are trying out different things, that's understandable, and that's a good thing to do because you want to you want to try things out so that you can make an informed decision. But try for getting that decision, to clarify that decision, and try also to find ways that maybe you can get a taste of, even if you think you know what it is, sometimes people are going down a path and then later on they start to get a taste of it and they realize, oh, this is not it. The sooner that you can get a taste of that career and what it would really be like, then one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to confirm and you're going to be even more motivated, and that's a great thing, or you're going to say, this is not it. And that might not be the happiest moment in that minute, that moment, but it's better for you to have that moment sooner than later because then you can course correct sooner and move on to finding the right thing. So things where you can get a taste of it, and some of the ways would be internships, doing some shadowing, um, interviewing somebody who works in the field. And I would actually suggest interview more than one person. Maybe interview somebody who really likes what they do, and then also interview somebody who doesn't, so that you have a balanced perspective. Okay. But anything where you can, for try to get your feet wet and get a taste of what that would really be like. Oh, and then another part that I wanted to say on this as well is that, particularly at community college, I know from my conversations with instructors that they would sometimes see, on the one hand, it is really great that students are very motivated to complete their degree program. But sometimes in that enthusiasm and in eagerness to complete the program, they sometimes load themselves up too much in a semester, and they're not always leaving themselves enough time for their other, for work and studying and any other obligations. So try for a balance where you are, on the one hand, you're staying focused and you have that goal of staying on track to graduate, but also give yourself some room to breathe. Make sure you're allowing enough time to study or anything else that you need to do, because when students don't do that, often what happens is it can actually backfire, and then they either had to withdraw from some classes, or maybe they tried but they didn't get sufficient grade, and that costs more time and money. It's just really not the best use of your time and money. Oh, I also want to mention, related to these topics, that a reminder that GCC has both a um, counseling and a career services department. In terms of physical location, they're in the same building. Their role is slightly different, though. Counselors are the folks that can help you if you are not sure what field you want to get into or what major, or you maybe have an idea of the major, but you're not sure what to do with it. Career Services helps with the job resources, including if you get work study, they're the folks that you would reach out to. But they're also doing a number of interesting things these days, where they're doing some different workshops about some of the things that I was just talking about job shadowing and how you might interview somebody who's in a field that you're interested in learning more about. Okay. And then other ways of reducing college costs, take some other cost cutting measures. So consider a few other ideas like budgeting and considering your needs versus your wants. Avoid credit cards, which sometimes they're just too easy to just throw things on a credit card, and then you're, actually now adding yet another type of debt. And it's just sometimes just too easy to say, well, I'll just put it on the credit card. So if you do use a credit card, use it wisely. Save money by using public or campus transportation, because otherwise your insurance, gas, parking maintenance, those all add up. And by the way, if you're not already familiar with things like budgeting and needs versus want and credit and debt, we've covered that in some of our previous sessions, but if this is your first session, then the content from those other sessions, we'll actually probably be doing some similar ones in the spring semester, but you don't even have to wait, because if you do the pre-session quiz and survey, it includes a link to opt into the Canvas, and the Canvas has similar content to those sessions so that you can get caught up on anything that you missed from the previous sessions. Okay. And Chase, I think it's now time I'm handing this off to you, and we'll kind of come back together again at the end.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Can you all hear me well?
I do. How about everybody else?
Everybody else, can I get a? All right. Thank you, Daisy. See that in the chat. Got Abby. All righty. All righty. So sorry about the visuals today. It was a little bit of a rough hair day for me. So, you're gonna have to excuse me on that, everybody. Um, but okay, so just going right into it.
Actually,
Like,
do you want me to stop sharing and then you share yours? Should we just continue this way?
no, yeah, we can just continue that way. So
Okay.
we don't have to transition or anything like that. So yeah, like Ariel was saying earlier, we know that college is very expensive, and we just want to give you guys some ways, some things, some resources, some tools, to go ahead and be able to conquer this, as well as, so one of the main things that I always like to tell students, is simply planning ahead. So can I get a view in the chat if you guys could? How many have actually sat down and planned out their coursework, what classes they're going to take, and how it applies to your major? Give you guys about 2 minutes. I just want to get a consensus. A little bit. Okay. For a few months ahead. Okay. So the overwhelming, what I see right here, is a lot of you, and correct me in the chat, please, if I'm wrong. A lot of you have planned probably about a semester or a year, but not the full time that you figure you're going to be in school. Is that correct? Yeah. So I see a semester or two ahead. So yeah, and this happens a lot with us because I know myself. I'm still currently in school, and until I put my 5-year plan down on paper, until I actually planned it out and made it real for myself, to where I could go ahead and see every single day, okay, this is my goal. Okay, that's what I expect to accomplish by January of 2021. And this is what I expect. Different things like that. It'll assist you in keeping those costs down. Just because of the simple fact that there will be no unexpected costs that come out. Because when you factor in fees and you factor in all these other things that go into your tuition, if you have that planning behind it, then 9 times out of 10, you're not going to hit any unexpected expenses. But then again, like Ariel said, it's always wonderful to put money back, just because of that simple fact that you may have some unexpected expenses. Okay. And we can move right along, Miss Ariel. All righty. So this is another one. I'm gonna be asking you guys a lot of questions today, so I hope you guys are ready. How many of you have already filled out the FAFSA application for next academic year, which is going to be 21-22? Yes. Okay. All right. So the overwhelming majority I see so far is that we haven't filled that out. So I would always encourage you guys to go ahead and fill it out. Just because of the simple fact of, I know I've had a lot of students that are like, well, I don't know, I'm still a dependent student, I probably won't get any money. Yeah, but if my thing is, I always tell them, yeah, but if you think about it, you could have a possibility of it. So why not, by just filling out taking 30 minutes out of your day and filling that out, and then you know for a fact if you're eligible or not. And then another thing too is, like I said, this goes right into with the planning ahead, because when you plan ahead, then you don't have to worry about finding or your FAFSA application after you're done with your classes, because you know you've already finished it for the next academic year. And so just make sure you guys know every year it at least comes out by October 3rd for the next following year. So for the next following academic year. So just make sure you guys are stay pertinent to that information, because what a lot of people don't know too is for most scholarships, you'll have need to filled out the FAFSA application as well. So, this is a very, very powerful tool for all of our students. And we just really encourage you guys to use it at any expense. And honestly, for myself, so I'm going to give a little personal anecdote. For myself, my first semester in college, I got grant money. So I didn't have any loans, but I got grant money. And that was the first time that I had ever seen a check in my name with that much money. And so, I didn't have a plan. I didn't. And what I ended up doing was spending that money in a lot of different ways that now when I look back on it, I'm like, man, if I would have just had a simple plan, I would have been able to pay for my whole education and I wouldn't have had to get student loans. Because now I'm at a position where I did have to receive student loans just because of the simple fact that I hadn't planned out my educational career. I hadn't planned out the expenses that come along with it. I hadn't planned out the gas going to and from school, to and from classes. I know it's a little different now with the pandemic, but still, even then, paying for electricity, paying for the Wi-Fi, different things like that. Just always keep that in mind. And this right here, this FAFSA application, I mean, it just does wonders because it makes you eligible for a lot of things such as grants, scholarships, loans. And then also one of the big things that makes you eligible for is work study as well, which I believe Ariel is going to touch on a little bit later in the presentation as well. So yeah, we can go ahead and go on. Alrighty, so like I was telling you guys, a lot of it, the cost of going to school. I mean, it can be challenging. Let me tell you guys that I know when, like I said, I didn't have a plan when I first started. After my first year, I had spent so much money, and I was working part time too, and I realized that I was spending more money on the things that uh, my financial aid, if you will, was for than actually spending that money on things that were needed. So I just always encourage you guys to know your options, because I had no idea that I was struggling in the first semester, and I was at a point where my housing wasn't as stable. And there's different programs on campus, different grants that schools are eligible or that students are eligible for based on different things like that. So always keep that in mind. Don't be ashamed of anything, you guys, because trust me, us as the college staff, we've been through it all. We've done it, and we've been there in a lot of your guys' positions. And so don't ever hesitate to ask for help. Also, like I said, you do have a lot of options, such as grant scholarships, and these can come from college and school specific programs. You have federal student loans, and then you have the work study as well. However, like I said in the previous slide, you all need to make sure that you fill out the FAFSA application to be eligible for most of this. So there are very few scholarships that you can receive without having filled out the FAFSA application. However, that is one of the most important things that you'll need to make sure that you guys fill out, just so that you are eligible to receive any grants, scholarships, federal student loans, or even the work study positions. Okay. And then also I just wanted to touch on really quick is there's at campuses, there is so many different clubs and different organizations that will also assist you with your tuition or with any expenses that come along with college. Such as there's Nina Honors program, and then you also have the MCCCD scholarships. I know that was a lot of C's, but you have those scholarships, and that's pretty much just Maricopa based scholarships. And then you also have some different programs. I know some banks, they'll earn to learn. And this was a fairly new program, but pretty much students with part-time jobs, as long as they deposited a certain amount into an account, and by the end of the semester they hit a certain amount, and it's different. There's different regulations for different programs like this, but the certain one I'm talking about, you hit a certain amount by the end of the semester, and then that bank will match it due to you being a student. So there's so many tools and resources that assist with that. Also, you have New Leaf. New Leaf is a program. It's kind of similar to the Earn to Learn. And that actually can be used at any of the three universities in Arizona. So U of A, University of Arizona, Arizona State University, and Northern Arizona University. So that's just some of the good things. And like I said, I'm gonna keep going with the questions. So where else? I need each of you to just give me one answer of where else do you guys think you can find money for college? And it doesn't have to be a conventional answer. I've gotten a lot of different answers on where to find money. So if you guys could go ahead and just put in the chat, um, please just let me know what else can you, or where else can you find money for these schools. If you guys want to go ahead and put in the chat, where else do you guys think we could find money for school? There we go. I see work. Companies sometimes give scholarships. Oh, that's a really good one, Jasmine. Thank you for that. Is if your job offers tuition assistance. So a lot of these jobs, I know Starbucks is starting to do it. I have some family that works actually at Starbucks that is doing the tuition reimbursement. So yeah, definitely those. I see babysitting, odd jobs, online and through jobs. So I see, yeah, Cody said that their job gives them tuition reimbursement. So, but one thing with that, I want you guys to really understand is tuition reimbursement is a little different. So they expect you to pay the tuition and then they reimburse it. So just make sure, and there are some stipulations to some jobs. So I know that at Starbucks you had to get at least a C in order to get that tuition reimbursement. So just always read into that. But yeah, thank you guys for the many families and organizations give scholarships. Yes, indeed they do. Yes, indeed they do. So there's a lot of families that have set up these private scholarship offerings, and so yeah, just make sure you guys are well informed because there is a lot of money out there. Last year or in 2018, excuse me, I believe there was 1.1 billion dollars in scholarships that went unclaimed. And so it's just there's a lot of things out there for you guys. Let me go through some of these other answers just really quick.
While you're doing that, Sue, I know that you were there, you were sharing something as well about scholarships.
I was trying, I'm typing, doing the chat. So
Okay.
that's okay. You also want to ask your parents, because many times parents also, their employer may have dependent scholarships. So you might want to ask them. They may not have even known about it if they don't ask. If they didn't have a child in college, they probably didn't even think to look for that type of benefit. But you might want to ask your parents to see if their employer has dependent scholarship or dependent grants that they can let you apply to. And then just so that you know, as far as the FAFSA is concerned, the 21-22 academic year, you'll be using your 2019 taxes. So just so that you know that it is the taxes that you had filed back in March or April of this year.
Yes, indeed. And then also with that, you guys should be able to use the DRT, which is the data retrieval tool on the FAFSA application. So you should be able to pull your taxes directly from the IRS, and that'll just make it a lot easier when it comes to doing the FAFSA application.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's a good time to mention as well that because, as Sue was saying, when they're doing the FAFSA for the next academic year, they're going back to 2019 taxes. Obviously, even normally, a lot can happen to change somebody's financial situation, but especially right now with the pandemic. But all financial aid offices have like a process where you can appeal. So even if the award letter comes back and it says something, but it's based upon, that prior year's taxes, it's like taxes of 2 years before, and your situation's now very different. It's okay to say, here's what's actually going on, and just find out from them, hey, what's your process for appealing this, because this is not making sense, or it's not, I should say it's not making sense, but it's not in line with my current reality. This was true then, it's not necessarily true now. And likewise, when it comes to say when you're transferring, if say you get an award letter from one school and then another one, but you prefer the other one, sometimes you can even say, well, this is the offer I got from that school, and see, the worst they could say is, no, that's our best offer. But sometimes they can look at things and reevaluate.
Yeah, and exactly. Just like Ariel said, that honestly is one of the best things you could do if your situation does change mid-semester. Just always reach out to the financial aid department, just so that and they know. It helps a lot when you let them know your situation, because then there are things that are available to you as students, to go ahead and, like she said, possibly adjust your award, or possibly adjust different things based on your current situation and not the situation that you were in 2019 or before that.
And I remember what you said, what I was going to say about scholarships, and that's there's so many scholarships, like you had mentioned, that go unclaimed, that what you should do is either go to a library where sit down and look at one of the books that are in the scholarships. They're usually found in the references, or sit down at a Barnes and Noble and just take a look at some of the books that say scholarship offers, and then see what scholarships are out there. If you seem like you're seeing a lot of things that you want to write down, go ahead and either take the book out of the library or purchase the book, because in the long run, it might be more beneficial for you to have that at home that you can actually take a look at and be able to use for a reference when you're trying to find money.
110%. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Just like Sue was saying, you guys, I had no idea. So my sophomore year of college, I had no idea about any scholarships or anything like that. I wound up getting a Pizza Hut scholarship for in their delivery zone. I kid you guys not. I cannot make this up. I believe it was only a $50 scholarship, but that was $50 that I didn't have before. And I literally got it just because I filled out the application, sent in a little blurb about myself and about my educational career up until that point, and I received it because I was in their delivery zone. So there's some wild ones out there. There's different scholarships for being left-handed. If you have red hair, it runs the gamut. So just make sure you guys are out there and actively looking for that.
Actually,
there's one that. Go ahead.
Well, that just reminded me of another point, and that has to do with when you're applying. And by the way, I was on the financial aid website. They've got scholarship resources and people you can talk with. They now also, when you go to their website, the GCC Financial Aid, they have Financial Aid TV, which is kind of like little videos. And there's one about scholars. Actually, it's more than one. There's probably a series, but one of them has to do with how do you write the scholarship essay. And this is something that I wanted to mention, because sometimes I've also been on the side where I was reviewing scholarships, and you see the two extremes. The one extreme where the scholarship is asking for certain information, and the student who's applying, you've taken the time to apply, but it's like, okay, tell us what you want, what your academic goals are. I want to be an engineer. Like, okay, that's not really, like elaborate a little bit, show us who you are, tell us, what look at the question and make sure you're answering the question, but answer it fully. And then you have others that go, and it's a kind of a novel to sort through. So you want to meet that, again, that balance of providing relevant information that gives people a sense of who you are. They want to award scholarships, but they need to find, like, okay, if there's multiple people that have applied, then they need to find the best fit. And the more that you can kind of sell yourself, but make it easy for them to see that you're the right fit.
Yeah, and a lot of times with that, I like to tell students that if you keep just like a 250 to 500 word essay about yourself, just highlighting your good qualities, that's
Mhm.
all a lot of these ships want as far as mission. And so if you just keep one in like Google Keep or Google Docs, and then you just change a couple words based on what they're looking for, man, you would be amazed at how much time that would save you as well.
Yeah, that's a great tip, Chase. Yeah, but I agree also with that clarifying point of, but make sure you're reading it and making those adjustments. Kind of similar to, like when you're applying for jobs, you have your own resume, and you might have a standard cover letter, but you want to still tweak it each time to suit your audience. And it's very similar, I think, with scholarship.
Exactly, exactly. And then I did want to point out, I see you guys in the chat. Lita Wallace said that Niche is a good site for super easy scholarships to match you, or that are matched to you. And I had no idea about that site. So yeah, most definitely. I have some sites coming up here in a couple of slides, but yeah, definitely Niche. If you guys find any different or any outlets that you can fill them out. Oh, and it's an app too. Wow, thank you, Alita. So yeah, and that makes it even easier. You download it straight to your phone, and like I said, you guys save Google Docs. You save that Google Doc to your phone, you can just sit there, edit it real quick, and then submit up to you never know how many in a day.
And before we move on, Sue, I know that you were telling me, you were mentioning to us, me and I think Chase as well, how you knew somebody recently that applied for a scholarship for women. And
Right. He was the man. But he was the only one that applied for it. So because the company wanted to have tax breaks with the, scholarship, they funded it to him.
Yes,
I mean,
and see that.
it's those weird ones you really want to look out for too.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful point, Miss Sue, because there's so many. I always tell students that when you're filling out scholarship applications, the best time to fill them out is right before tax season. And the reason I say that is because a lot of these companies and a lot of these organizations, they do not want to pay taxes on that scholarship money, and they will end up having to pay taxes on that scholarship money if they don't give it away. However, if they give it away and get an applicant to accept that and receive it, then they get to write that off on their taxes and get that money right back. So it's a win-win situation in that end. And then also some of their criteria, they might not necessarily like Ms. Sue just said, some of that criteria, they may have not met that, but if they were the only applicant, then they may have gotten selected because of that specific reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're moving right along.
All right.
Alrighty. So I mean, this is just I'm gonna pound this into your guys' head. Just understanding what you're receiving first and foremost, because I know I have a lot of students that I've spoke to over the years, that will receive loans or accept loans within their student center and didn't realize that they accepted a loan. So always make sure you know what you're accepting, you know what your refund is for, you know what it includes, and pretty much just the simple definition of grants, loans, scholarship, and work study. So like grants are always going to be free money, but also remember that they're not automatic and they're not unlimited. So you do have a cap on how much Pell Grant you can receive. And so just always make sure that, and you can visit studentaid.gov if you want to go ahead and log in and see that. I believe, Sue, was there a site that they could go ahead and check that? Because I know NSLDS is not up anymore.
No, it's studentaid.gov.
Okay. So yeah, studentaid.gov. And that site, you just log on with the same FSA ID and password that you use for to fill out your FAFSA application. So it'll automatically pull up all your information and you'll be able to find that there. But like I said, just make sure you know that grants, they're free, but not automatic, and they're not unlimited. And as well, I've had a lot of students that will drop classes. And if you receive grant money and you drop classes, you may be responsible for that. So just always make sure, check with the financial aid department and your counselor before you withdraw from any classes or drop any classes. Just because it could have more of an impact on your financial aid and your higher education career than you may realize at that point in time. So always just go to your resources. And like I say on the bottom is resources. Always use your resources because that's what will keep you out of hot water when it comes to the grants, loans, and scholarships and things like that. And then really quick, just to touch on, there is a limit for loans as well for undergrad. For subsidized loans is 2,300 or 23,000. Excuse me. Yeah, I know Sue was right on that. But yeah, so that's 23,000. And then I believe, Sue, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 57,000. And that's 57,500, and that's total including the unsub loans.
Right,
So
23 and unsub always only.
okay, yep. So yeah, and you guys, this is just to keep in mind because we have a lot of students that will borrow a lot while they're at the community college level, but then they forget that they still have to go on and do 2 more years or a year or so at a university level.
Yeah, and it's going to be more expensive beyond community college. So you want to keep things down as much as possible, and especially keep the borrowing down as much as possible in these, to start.
Exactly.
And another thing, your note here about resources reminds me as well, and we touched on earlier about you're still responsible if you don't graduate. So it's very important. Stay on track to graduate. I was sharing with Sue and Chase before this role. I previously worked with the counseling department. So I know the folks in counseling and career services. I know the great work that they do. And I know from having worked with them that one of their concerns is that a lot of times if a student leaves, there was some research or something like that apparently points to that when a student does drop out, that they found out that there was a resource that could have helped the student if the student had known. So I just want to kind of highlight that there's so many resources available to you on campus, through the district. So if there's an area where you're struggling, chances are there's somebody that can help. And start asking, ask your advisor, call the counseling department, even if they're not the right. I fielded those phone calls myself, and I know like the folks answering the phones there, they know like so much of the campus community. So even if they're not the right area for your question, they probably know who is, and they can probably get you pointed in the right direction. So many resources. So if there's a point when you start to struggle, don't give up, reach out instead and take advantage of the resources available. Because people are here that want to see you succeed.
Yes, indeed. All righty, so we can move right along.
All right.
So this is just a quick one. Like we were telling you guys, scholarships can come from anywhere. Scholarships can come from a lot of different places. Just make sure that you guys are filling out the correct scholarships or verified scholarships, if you will, just because there are some scams out there. So just always make sure to research, anything that you get. If you get anything saying you've been selected or anything that says we have a free scholarship or da 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 da. 9 times out of 10, it's a ploy to get you to visit their website or to call them. So just always do your research, but don't hesitate to fill out verified scholarships. And at a lot of these sites that you guys are visiting, such as Niche, and these other sites that I'll show you here briefly, uh, you guys will find and they'll be verified. So yeah, you're good to go as far as scholarships go. And then I'll also just look in anything that you're already involved in. So any organizations that you're already involved in, if you attend a church, you attend after school programs, or you help out with student or kids or anything like that, babysitting, just look into these organizations, because a lot of them do have money that they're willing to give out for students. Alrighty, so like you guys were saying, I need to go ahead and I need to add Niche to this one, because I see that was a big hit in the chat. But at the very top, so these are some of the top scholarship websites, and at the very top you have Maricopa Academic Works. So that's going to be for all Maricopa Academic Works scholarships. But then, like I was telling you guys earlier, you also can go to the MCCCD scholarship site as well, and that'll be scholarships for all Maricopa community colleges. And then, just going along, you have FastWeb, CapEx. My personal favorite is is FastWeb, just because they have you fill out a little survey before. It sounds pretty similar to Niche, where they pretty much just match you to the scholarships that are available for you, that you already fit the criteria for. So, all righty. So federal loans versus non-federal loans versus private loans. So I always tell my students, if you're eligible for federal loans, please go the federal student loan way. Just because of the simple fact that when you have federal student loans, there's a lot more financial freedom, if you will, when it comes to that. You have a lot more options as far as repayment. And then also they'll work with you a lot more if you have a federal student loan, rather than if you had a private one from these banks or these for-profit businesses. And then so federal loans, some of the federal student loans that you could be eligible for are going to be the direct subsidized, and then direct unsubsidized. So the difference between these two, just to speak on that a little bit, subsidized, if you are eligible for subsidized, I would always recommend that you do that, just for the simple reason being, when you get a subsidized student loan, as long as you're in school and that loan is deferred, then the interest that accrues on that loan and the interest subsidy will be paid by the federal government. So you will not gain any interest as long as you're in school and and that loan is deferred with either an in-school deferment or some other type of deferment. Now, the unsubsidized is a little bit different. Right when you receive that amount, you automatically start accruing interest, and that interest does not stop accruing until you pay the remaining balance of that loan. So, like I said, if you guys are eligible for the subsidized, always go subsidized. But if not, then unsubsidized. If it's a need, it's definitely not the worst thing. But I would just say stay away from private loans as much as you can, because of the simple fact that a lot of these organizations or companies that offer these private loans are for profit. And they're trying to get as much money as they can out of, any way they can. So just be very aware of that.
Just a reminder, make sure that you're taking at least 6 credit hours at one institution. That keeps the in-school deferment on your loan.
Correct, indeed. Yes, indeed. So yeah, like Sue said, just going back to the point, just make sure that you're in school and those loans are deferred with a deferment, because as I'm going to get in here in a little bit, deferment and forbearance are two totally different things, and they do different things to your loan. So, but we can go ahead and go on, Ariel. So this website right here, this is literally got to be one of my favorite websites. So it's no longer NSLDS. It'll actually, you could still go search up NSLDS, the National Student Loan Data System, and it'll just bring you to studentaid.gov, like I was telling you guys earlier. But the best thing about this is you're able to use your FSA ID and login and password, the same one that you created with the Fafsa application. So just always be aware that whenever you log into studentaid.gov, you'll just use your FSA login and password. Alrighty. So I get this question a lot when students receive loans. They always ask me, so when am I going to have to pay this back? When am I going to have this back? Am I going to have to pay it in full? So the answer to that question is, so anytime you graduate, transfer, withdraw, leave school, or drop below halftime enrollment. So just like Sue was saying, if you're not in at least 6 credits at one campus, so I understand that we're one district. However, you need to be in at least 6 credits at one campus. So that means that if you're at Glendale Community College and Scottsdale Community College, make sure that at least at one of those campuses, you're taking at least 6 credits in order to be eligible for that deferment, that in-school deferment that allows for subsidized loans, interest to be paid off. So the way it works is you'll receive the loan, and then you'll have, so as long as you're in school, like it says, as long as you're in school at least 6 credits, then you'll continue to be on what's called as an in-school deferment. And so pretty much like I told you guys, if you have the unsubsidized loans, that interest is going to keep accruing. But if you have the subsidized loans, that interest will be put on a pause. And then once you either graduate or leave school, so let's say you leave school, you graduate, and you're going to go on to ASU, and you plan to do that within at least 180 days from your last day of attendance of a class at the community college. As long as you do it within 180 days, you'll continue to be eligible, and you'll continue to be on that in-school deferment as long as you meet the requirements at that different campus or at that different university. So pretty much the way it works is once you receive a loan, after you graduate or withdraw, you'll have 180 days to either one, enroll in classes and start attending those classes, and they have to be at least half-time credit, and then or you'll have 180 days in order to get ready to start repayment on your loans. And to reach out to your loan servicer, you can set up different payment arrangements, or you could also discuss different options in which we'll go ahead and go forward on, because there are options if you're not able to pay after that 180 days. So just to go into repayment a little bit, you always want to stay consistent with your payments. There's a bunch of different repayment plans that you have, and remember, this is all with federal student loans. So this only pertains to federal student loans. So with repayment, you have a bunch of options. You have the standard, extended, graduated, and then the income driven, which is my personal favorite. Because I know that when I graduate, or when I did graduate previously, I wasn't necessarily in a position where I could make those $100 payments every month. So what I was able to do is give them my income, turn in my tax information so they could see my income, and then they base the payments off of that. So that's a really good repayment plan for students just graduating, trying to just get a head start or start paying on their federal student loans. Yeah, we can go ahead and go forward.
Add though with and granted, sometimes people need that, but if you can manage it, the standard repayment, then that is generally how you pay the least amount of interest over the life of your loan, and so, correct?
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, with that income driven repayment plan, you do want to be careful though. You do want to be careful, just because of the simple fact, like Ariel said, the interest will accrue, but you're able to, it's compounded into the principal. So it'll just become part of your payments, if that makes sense. But you do.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, but it's good to have that option for those that need it.
Yeah, no, 100%. But the only thing I would say be cautious with that is simply because if you stay on that income driven repayment plan, just know that I believe, and Sue, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's every year or every 2 years I believe it's every year. It's every 12 months that you have to reapply for that. So if your income has gone up due to you getting new employment, due to you making more, substantially more income that year, then your payment will also go up if you stay on that income driven repayment plan.
Yes, you're correct, Chase. It is every 12 months.
Okay,
Just
perfect.
one other thing, if you can make any payments while you're in your grace period, if you have a subsidized loan, that will pay strictly the principal of your loan. So it's almost like you borrowed money and didn't have to pay any interest to use it. So as much as you can do is, to pay it back during that grace period before it goes into repayment, because during that time, no interest is charged.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, Sue, because I totally forgot about that. So yeah, if you guys within that 180 days, if you guys are able to make payments, please do. Please do. Just because of the simple fact that you'll be saving yourself a lot of interest payments.
Mhm.
So yeah, just like Sue said, man, that is honestly one of the smartest things that I've ever seen a student do is pay off, make small payments while they're in school, so that way when they graduate, you're literally just paying on the money that you borrowed. Alrighty, so unfortunately, we do have to go over if you do get federal student loans, and this is a big reason why I say, um, always be aware of what's going on with your financials as far as it relates to college and even in your personal life. Just because with the federal student loans, if you do end up missing, let's say you miss one payment, that next day you're 1 day delinquent. So, delinquent status or delinquency status, this can affect your credit. So after 90 days of delinquency status, this can be reported on your credit. So just be very aware of that. And delinquency, like I said, after 90 days, it will be reported on your credit. And then when you reach 270 days without payment or without reaching out to your servicer, then you'll go into what's called as default. And default is not where you want to be, because default is going to be there's just a lot of things that can happen when you're in default. Pretty much your loan goes from a federal servicer to a collection agency. And when that happens, the collection agency is going to be in control of your repayment. So, you just always want to be very, very aware and make sure you don't even ever hit default or even delinquency, because there are many, many options. So just like I was saying before, there are many, many options to you. So like I was saying before, deferment and forbearance. So while you're in school, there's a couple different deferments. And this one is definitely the one you would want to go to if you have an option of it, just because of the simple fact that a deferment will allow you to also pause the interest if on a subsidized loan. So as long as you have a subsidized loan, a deferment will allow you to pause the interest on that. So if you're in an in-school deferment, or let's say you lose your job and you get an unemployment deferment or a hardship deferment, there's a couple different deferments. But any type of deferment will pause the interest on your loan, or the interest subsidy will be paid by the government. And then a forbearance is a little different. You're available for 36 months of forbearance for the lifetime of your loan, which pretty much just means that you have 36 months in where you can choose not to make a payment at that point in time. So a forbearance will just set your due date. It'll just set it back, and you can use, I believe right now, servicing companies are allowing you to use up to 6 months. Some allow you to use 12. It just really depends on your servicer, but they'll allow you to use that in bulk, so that, let's say, for the next 6 months, you're going to have to be making, you got a ticket. So you have to pay that off before you can continue paying on your federal student loans. So all you would need to do is just give them a call, say, hey, I need a forbearance for 6 months from this date to this date, and then you're good to go. And then you'll have a forbearance placed on that. You won't be counted delinquent. The only thing with that is the interest will still accrue. So just be very aware of that if you do go on that 6-month forbearance, for those 6 months, your interest will still continue to accrue during that time.
I just wanted to stress, like you were saying, be sure that, and make sure that those that are hearing this information understand that they can't just choose to put themselves in forbearance. They have to contact it's probably their loan provider, which I figure I know you have a slide coming up soon on that, but you have to make those arrangements. You don't just put yourself in that situation.
Yes, Era, you are 100% correct. And you guys, I always say, like, make sure you're familiar with your servicer, just because you can do things online, like on your online account, that you can also do with calling in. So it might just save you some time, and then on top of that, it keeps you up to date. So so yeah, just going yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
actually perfect. So these are a list of your different possible loan servicers. So we had something a little odd, if you will, go on. So Cornerstone used to be a servicer, is no longer a servicer as of currently. It's been effective immediately. And so we just want you guys to know that these are going to be your possible servicers. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Miss Sue, had something to say about the Cornerstone, just because you'll be getting notification within 60 days. But then moving forward beyond that, I believe there will be some other changes or possible changes as well. Is that correct, Ms. Sue?
Yeah, there can be changes. I believe 3 or 4 of the servicers signed contracts to March of 2021, and then 4 of them signed till 2022. So we're not sure who's sticking around, but if there's changes, they will certainly notify you.
Yeah. So and I believe they have 60 days to notify them, correct?
I'm not sure exactly of the date. That's why I always recommend students check studentaid.gov so that they can monitor their own loans, and they can't then say, well, no one told me. As you know, people like to always say is, well, no one said anything. Well, you've got the website to actually go on and be able to monitor your own loans at the same time. And in any case, you can always call us.
Yeah, 100%. So like Sue said, we're always here to help. If you do have any questions and don't know where to go or don't know what to do, just please reach out. So moving right along, the consequences of default. So I was talking to you guys a little bit about default earlier. So just like I said, it can be reported to the credit bureaus. You'll lose your eligibility to get federal student aid. Different things like it'll immediately be due, which just means it went to collection agency. And then some of the big things that a lot of our students, especially around tax time, found out that they will garnish your whole tax refund. They will literally take your whole tax refund. And then if it goes beyond that, they will start wage garnishment. I know none of us want that at this point in time. No, none of us probably want that ever. But yeah, these are some of the consequences of default. So just always make sure you're staying up to date with that pertinent information towards pertaining to your federal student loans if you do have those. All righty. So like I was saying, like I was telling you guys, when you do get to the point of you're not going to be able to pay, there is different types of deferment and forbearances, or there's different type of deferments that you possibly may be eligible for, and then you always have the forbearance. That's always an option. So just always keep these in mind. And like I said, interest usually doesn't accrue as long as you have a subsidized loan with a deferment. So you know what I mean? And even if you do go on a deferment, if you do have an unsubsidized loan, that interest will just be capitalized to your principal amount, which just means the interest that has accrued, it'll just be added to your loan amount. So you do have options. So please, you guys do not default. Please do not default, because this can be totally avoided, and we are here to help. Alrighty, so moving right along to the federal work study. I'm going to speak on this briefly, but then I'm going to also allow Ariel to speak on this and Sue to speak on this, just because I know there's a lot of ins and outs, especially with what's happening currently in our pandemic situation. But yeah, so federal work study is, I mean, I did federal work study. I worked in the music department. Trust me, I can't play an instrument to save my life, nor can I sing. Sue can attest to that. So, but it was a job at the time that I was able to take, and I was able to stay at school. So I went to Mesa Community College, and I was able to work in the music department, go straight from my class to work, and then go straight from work to class. And then once I left campus, I was done. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to go to class. I was done with my whole day. So that's just one of the great things about federal work study. Also, just be aware that you won't exceed 20 to 25 hours per week, just because of the simple fact that there is funding set aside specifically for that, and so you won't be able to exceed those hours. But also just be very aware that overtime may be available. I know when I was working, overtime just happened to be available, and so you can definitely take a full advantage of that.
I want to try to, streamline the next few because we're getting close to our wrap up time. I was hoping to have time at the end for those 4 areas.
Yeah, no, most definitely, that was pretty much that I had as far as that goes.
Anything that you need to say about, when they're transferring and their loans and things like that?
Yes, so always when you guys are transferring, so as long as you're a half-time student within any accredited institution, you'll be able to go ahead and stay in an in-school deferment as long as you're a part-time student. So let's say you're making the transfer from Glendale Community College to ASU, and you want those loans will stay in deferment as long as you're still at least a half-time student at ASU, and you make that jump within 180 days within your grace period time. So always do that, and then just in case if you want to take an extra step, so universities and accredited institutions are required by law to report to the federal government, to the Department of Education, of your enrollment status, which you'll also be able to see on studentaid.gov. But you can check that, like I said, you can check that at studentaid.gov, or you can just simply call your loan servicer and just make sure, like, hey, I'm in classes right now. I just wanted to make sure that I was in that in-school deferment. And they'll let you know, they'll be able to pull it all up right then, and they'll let you know, yep, you've been on it from this date, and it looks like your classes are ending on this date. So if anything changes, please give us a call. So they'll really work with you. But as far as transferring, just make sure you have all of your community college financials in order, just so that way you can make that seamless transfer.
And as part related to financially, like we mentioned earlier, when you consider your transfer costs and you're researching different schools, don't only look at the sticker price is kind of what is now being referred to, the price that they are putting on their website. There's other costs to consider, both in terms of cost to be added, but also sometimes they are showing one price, but after they get to see your expected contribution, they kind of fill in the gap a lot of times with various grants and so on. And so there's more resources out there now for understanding the new price. And those that are on and complete the quiz, I'll later on be sending out like a document with some resources that include some more information on that. And then we're in the home stretch, guys. A good guideline if you're borrowing is, we talked earlier about, researching and reconfirm what field you want to go into, your choice of major and career objective. A good rule of thumb, if you are going to borrow, is, look into, well, what will you earn in that career? And how much will you earn in that first year of your career? And if you're going to borrow, you want to try to avoid borrowing beyond 1 year of your first year salary. So if you're in your first year, you are going to get, likely to be able to earn, I don't know, let's just say $50,000 a year. Then you want to try to cap your borrowing around $50,000, in terms of the education that you're getting for that career. Okay, so that's a good rule of thumb, a good guideline to know about. And then we're back to, I want to ask a little bit of time to go over these questions. So Would love to hear from others, you know, from the students who are on with us. What things are you thinking in terms of what you have gotten out of this? What things what were your takeaways about that you want to understand about paying for college? Everybody still there? Sue and Chase, do you want to, maybe Will jump in? Okay, I didn't know that loans could essentially carry over. Okay. For me, the chat kind of flashes and then disappears because I'm in presenting mode. Any other thoughts?
I'm not sure what they mean. They didn't know how it carried over. Are you talking about the fact that you don't have to pay them back, or are you talking about the amount carries over?
Yeah, I mean, they're listed, they're listed.
While we're trying to sort that out, I'm going to jump into some of them. You know, the three of us had the opportunity to share our ideas the other day, and some of our ideas were the importance of the FAFSA. As I was learning more about this and found out that a lot of could everybody please remain muted?
It's a nice house.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That sometimes people don't even bother with the FAFSA. Either they think it costs money or they think it's not worth their time. And they just assume that they won't qualify and that it's only people of, you know, only very low income people. But no, actually people of all different income levels, you know, there's like Chase was talking about, and I think Sue was as well, even different scholarships will require that. So get that done, and it's already open for next academic year, so get that in early. So that would be one of the things. Researching the your net cost at your transfer schools is another. Knowing about scholarships and applying for them, even if you're just kind of close, go ahead and apply. How about some ideas that people are taking away about how to keep your education costs and your student debt down? To avoid loans as much as possible. Any other ideas? Making sure to stay on track and look at all your options. Yeah, absolutely. There we go. All right. Yeah, those were some of our ideas as well, had to do with knowing that there are resources out there, planning, budgeting, and keeping a balance. Pay for school consistently and not neglect payments. Yes, absolutely. And ideas on what to do, what you plan to do to stay on track to graduate. need to start planning. Good. Some of ours were, oh, and I don't know if Sue or Chase, if you want to talk at all about financial aid standing and SAP. I know one of the things I want to, just stress to people in terms of staying on track to graduate, as I mentioned earlier, about clarify and confirm your career objective and your major, meet with your advisors, minimize unneeded classes, but also strike a balance. I'm seeing keeping track of grades to avoid getting financial aid taken away. Yes. Okay, about in-school status. All right, and then our last of the four was, what do you want to understand and know about repaying your loans? And while people are answering that, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can. Much better. It's like I can see you all again. Sorry, I have a dog. He's running in the yard. To remember, pay sooner rather than later. Ask for help if struggles arise. Yes, absolutely. Don't leave, folks. We have the quiz and survey. Okay, and there's the quiz and survey. So I hope that you got a lot out of this. And a couple of reasons for this. One is to engage, doing the paper, but also because a lot of times when you sit in on these sessions, we might hear and it's like kind of like you're trying to take it all in, but you can't remember it all. So hopefully by writing, you're more likely to remember more of it, but also you have it that you can now refer back to and go, oh yeah, I wanted to remember this and this. So there was a reason for doing this. Okay, and I put in the chat, I put the link for the quiz and survey. Please go ahead and get that done, especially if you are participating for one of the campus programs, STEM Scholars, Honors, extra credit with an instructor. That's how we'll verify attendance. But even if you're not, I still appreciate you're doing that. And I will also send out a resource sheet that I have started to work on, but I want to flesh out a bit more and add some additional resources too. Thank you, Abby. I see these are amazing tips. Help to lower the stress of figuring out how you'll pay. That's awesome. Glad to hear that, Abby. Thank you. And any other, while we're on if there's any other parting questions or comments to share, you can either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I believe we're still in the recording mode, so. So Jasmine, that's why I'm saying do the quiz and survey, and there's a question on the quiz and survey that asks if you are participating for honors or extra credit, and that is how I will then send them the list. I will probably, hi T, I will probably put this into the Canvas that you're already a part of. And if anyone's on who's not part of that, hopefully you've already done the pre-session quiz and survey, but even if you haven't, that is out there. And if you need it, I can always give it to you. And when you complete that, then there's a link to self-enroll into the Canvas.
You have the group in the Canvas?
I'm sorry?
You have a group in the Canvas?
Do I have what in the Canvas?
Group?
Group.
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, how can I see your presentation in the Canvas?
It's not in there yet.
Oh.
Well, I just gave it. We're only just wrapping up right now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're no problem. You're welcome.
Nice day.
Well, for the recording, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, but I will stay on, and I believe Chase and Sue are also on in case there are any other questions.